Go to another line here, and I believe this is Delegate Wendell Beitzel.
It sure is, Paul. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing quite well. How about you?
Well, we're surviving down here.
I was going to say, we're talking about ASCII up here this morning, but there's always time for a report from Annapolis. And what's the good word and what's the bad word this week?
Well,
I guess the bad word in your vernacular every week is taxes, right?
That's right, but we did manage to beat back one fee increase here last week, which was a major victory for the hunters in our area. The Department of Natural Resources had proposed to almost double the hunting fees, and it's really a real strange occurrence on the House floor. The House voted against the Chairman of Environmental Matters Committee's bill to raise the hunting fees, and that they indicated that's the first time on the House floor that she had lost one of her bills.
Boy, that is something there.
She was quite upset.
Well, I would imagine that'd be upsetting if you've always had that kind of power to get something through that you wanted or didn't want. That it would be kind of a step back for you. I guess part of the argument is that if we're taxed so high and we get taxed on hunting, we won't even be able to hunt for our food. Is that is that the point?
Well, the point was that, and this is really interesting because we had support from Montgomery County and Harford County, and the delegates from those areas argued that the farmers in their region were having a difficult time with crop damage from the deer, and they felt that we needed to encourage more hunting rather than to raise the fees to the point that we would discourage the youth and hunters from buying the hunting license.
That is interesting that you would get support from down there. Mm-hmm. It must have been a good day.
It was interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
I was kind of amazed at the way it turned out because I think it's the first time this session we've got a victory on where we've been able to push back some taxes and fees.
Okay. Another thing that happened this week was the state settling on 7.5% for the state side of the tax to Marcellus Shale. Yes,
that was we really argued that one on the floor. I probably had more time on the floor on that issue than I've had on any other bill. And the bill, as it originally went in, they wanted to put a 15% severance tax on natural gas if and when it's ever extracted in Garrett County. The bill was amended in committee to 7.5%. As you may know, Senator Edwards put a bill in on the Senate side at 2.5%. And we already have a 5.5% severance tax in place in Garrett County, and there's a 7% tax in Allegheny, which they've indicated they're going to move back to 5.5% to conform it to Garrett County's tax. So if you take, and that tax was put in place for Garrett County to take care of the problems that the people that have concerns about the drilling, those issues that they have concerns about can be taken care of with like road maintenance and maybe noise and dust and other problems that they're and water problems that they're indicating that may be a negative impact of the drilling operations. But the state the Environmental Matters Committee, again, it came out of that committee, determined that they wanted to put a severance tax on this before there's even any activity. So we're taxing something in Maryland that up to this point doesn't even take place or occur.
How does it compare to other states? You take the 5.5 and the 7.5 in Garrett County and the state, and that adds up to 13%. What is the comparable state looking at as far as Marcellus Shale gas interest paying taxes for?
In our neighboring states,
yeah,
that the 5.5 and the 7.5 does equal 13%, and basically what that boils down to, I think we just put a big invisible sign at our border saying, gas companies, you're not welcome. But because in the neighboring states, Pennsylvania it's 0, In Ohio, it's like a quarter of a cent on 1,000 cubic feet of gas, which is very little. And in West Virginia, which is the highest of the states in the Marcellus Shale region, it's 5%. And in Virginia, it's 0, and in New York, it's 0.
Wow.
So you can see that in the and we only have 1% of the Marcellus Shale. We only comprise 1% of the Marcellus Shale area in total. So the states that are operating in Pennsylvania and West Virginia and now in Ohio extensively, those companies will. Why would they want to come to Maryland and pay 13% when they're looking at 13% tax if this goes through? And I really don't think the 7.5 will hold up. If the Senate bill would pass through at 2.5%, then there would be a conference committee between the House and the Senate to iron out a difference. And the indication is, and hopefully our good Senator George Edwards over on the Senate side can do something to knock it down.
Speaking of House Senate conference committees, the education funding limitation on cuts is a matter of negotiation at this point. Any indication this week on which way that's going to go?
Well, I think Senator Edwards and I are going to do everything we can possibly do to make sure that we get that 5% limit on that 5% cap to limit the loss to no more than 5%, and that will be a really significant issue for our schools out there in Garrett County. And Senator Edwards, since they dealt with the budget first, put in the provision on the Senate side. When it came to the House, it came to my committee and was jointly referred to my committee, Appropriations and Ways and Means. I was able to hold it in my committee, but Ways and Means knocked it out. So we now have a difference. So it will be dealt with in conference committee. I've been appointed to the Budget Conference Committee. Senator Edwards is appointed to the BRFA Conference Committee, and this is contained in the BRFA. I'm an alternate for the BRFA Conference Committee. So, and I've got and worked and got some pretty good assurances that the House will agree to the Senate provision, which would hold that 5% cap.
So we'll put you down under optimistic.
I'm very optimistic at this point that we can do it, and I just hope that as a result of this will help to prevent some closings of our elementary schools there in Garrett County.
I know you got to run to session in a couple minutes. I'll give you one more question here. There's been rumors that the gas tax may come back at the last minute. Is that possible, and do you see it happening?
Well, anything's possible down here, and that's the thing we really have to watch for. At the end of session, there's a whole bunch of stuff gets pushed through, and they try to push a bunch of stuff through. If you aren't wide awake, and catch you by surprise. We're watching for this one. There is some rumors that might happen. Haven't seen anything up to this point yet, and I can tell you, among the delegates and the senators down here, there's not a whole lot of appetite for raising the gas tax.
All right, Delegate Wendell Beitzel, thanks for dropping by this morning via telephone from Annapolis. You have another busy day, I'm sure, and then as we always wish you and the senator a safe trip and safe travels back to Garrett County for the weekend.
Thank you very much, Paul.